The passing game. Why is it that some coaches and quarterbacks tear up defenses while others struggle? In today's show, I'm going to lay out my approach to the passing game. This is QB Unfiltered, my take, making the passing game hum.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, so there are many ways to attack the defense throwing the ball. And throughout history, there have been a handful of schemes and a handful of coaches that have shaped the passing game as we know it today. You have Don Coryell and his Air Coryell attack with the San Diego Chargers. You got the West Coast system that was Bill Walsh's baby with Joe Cool, Joe Montana, and Steve Young running the show. You got Mouse Davis and the run and shoot, which just really lit defenses up. June Jones was also a big part of that run and shoot deal. You had Doug Scoville and Norm Chow at BYU. Those guys absolutely obliterated defenses throwing the ball, and they were the genesis for what is now pretty much the rage in all levels of football, the air raid. It was Hal Mumme and Mike Leach that took a trek to Provo, Utah way back when to study the Cougars' passing game. They took those concepts from BYU and turned it into what they labeled the air raid. Much of today's effective passing schemes have been concepts and philosophies stolen in some form or another from all of those great coaches from the past. I was very fortunate when I played in college to play at Idaho State, and the offensive staff when I was there came from BYU. And so we were running BYU's pass offense. The other great thing about Idaho State was I was coached by a guy named Mike Shepard, who I consider one of the best quarterback coaches to come through college football and the NFL. I learned a ton of stuff from him, mechanically, a lot of the things that I incorporated into the way I coach quarterbacks when I got into coaching. And so really lucky to be around guys that shaped my philosophy and how you throw the football. Okay, so when I started to develop my philosophy and my scheme in regards to throwing the football, I stole a lot of stuff from Dennis Erickson, the no-back stuff that he did. I took a lot of stuff from Steve Spurrier for the Florida Gators, especially his man-to-man isolation routes that he used to kill defenses with. And then the run and shoot stuff with Mouse Davis and June Jones, and a lot of Mike Leach, Hal Mumme, and then finally Tony Franklin sprinkled in there. And all of those guys really shaped my thought process on throwing the football. I added a little bit of my own spin into that. And that's really what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. So here we go. Okay, first, general philosophy and methods. You want to have a condensed call sheet and route schemes. That means have a handful of plays that you lean on and you make that your passing game, because a condensed call sheet equals reps in practice. And repeated reps in practice equals execution on game day. Coaches that run a whole bunch of shit in their playbook are average at running a whole bunch of shit. So the smart coaches in the passing game take a handful of concepts that are good versus man and zone, and that's what they live and die with. And they rep it every day. Rep, and refine it and make it better and perfect it, and then turn it loose on game day. Within that passing game now, you have to have man and zone principles and adjustments built in to each route. You have to attack the entire field, okay, horizontally and vertically. Make the defense play, 53 and a half yards from sideline to sideline, and make them play 120 yards from end line to end line, the entire field. Going against zone defense, you have to have conflict situations with one defender. And within those conflict decisions, they're easy reads for your quarterback that are if-then scenarios. If this defender does this, then you do this. Going against zone defense, you must attack the defense's worst defenders. And I always went after the slot defenders first. When you look in the perimeter of a coverage, cornerbacks and safeties and slot defenders, the slot defenders are obviously the least skilled in pass defense out there on the perimeter. Go after those guys. They are usually outside linebacker type guys. They're going to be matched up against your slot receivers. You're going to win that matchup athletically every single time. Also go after inside linebackers, particularly when you're getting man coverage and you're able to work your running back against those guys on isolation routes. Okay, against man, have routes where the defense has to chase your receivers. Okay, we're talking about crossing routes, deep crossers, shallow crossers, corner routes, sail routes, which are deep out routes, dig routes, which are deep in routes. Anything where the receiver can stick his toe and burst and make a defender chase him. But crossing routes, defensive guys, when they're playing man-to-man, have a hell of a time trying to run with the receiver when he's going all the way across the field. Use that to your advantage. Okay, this is a big one. Use your running back as a fifth receiver. The most dangerous pass offenses at any level are the ones that incorporate their running back in the passing game and use him as a fifth receiver and not just a check down or an outlet guy. Defenses cannot account for running backs in the passing game. They can't do it in zone coverage, and in man-to-man, it's a total mismatch because you're going to usually have an inside linebacker on a really good athlete, which is your running back. Okay, you want to get equal touches for all five receivers. Now, this should make sense. I mean, if you really want to put pressure on the defense, get the ball to all five of the guys that can catch footballs, right? Don't just throw to one or two guys where defensively now they can start bracketing your top receivers. They can start doubling your top receivers, or they can forget about your other guys altogether. Make them defend all five guys that can catch the ball. When you talk about a balanced offense, and in the old days, it used to be around the same number of pass attempts as rushing attempts. That's not the way I look at it. I look at a balanced offense in having all five of your skill guys touching the ball equally. Okay, you want to make sure that you stretch the field vertically. Even if you're not completing passes, you want to show the defensive coordinator that you're going to take the top off of coverages. The reason why you want to do this is you cannot allow the defense to squeeze their safeties down and play your passing game in a box, right? Where it just gets congested. Take the top off, stretch the defense, okay? You're going to make big plays doing that. And you're also going to scare the shit out of the defensive coordinator when you're taking shots downfield. Okay, have a pre-snap checklist for determining coverage for your quarterback and your receivers, one that they have to go through that checklist every time they come to the line of scrimmage to determine coverage. Make it simple, make sure that they do it on every snap, and it's imperative that your quarterback and receivers are all on the same page when the ball's snapped. In other words, if it's zone, all of your guys need to know it's zone, and they need to know what kind of zone it is so that everybody knows what routes are being run and how you're going to attack that particular coverage. Okay, and then in practice, your periods that you have, whether they're group or team periods, your individual drill work, these all must pertain to what you're doing scheme-wise. Now, that might seem like a kind of a stupid statement by me, but you'd be amazed at how many coaches work on stuff in practice that has nothing to do with what they do within their scheme. Okay, so in regards to the passing game, you better make sure that you're doing the group work, the teamwork, and the individual mechanics and technique work that have to do specifically with what you're doing, throwing the ball, that make your guys successful on game day or game night. Here's something that just drives me crazy, that a lot of coaches do not follow this very simple couple of statements here. And that is this: when it comes to practice and games, right? Do not practice plays that you don't call in the game, and don't call plays in the game that you haven't practiced during the week. Now, that should make sense. Coaches don't follow that. And that's why you get these really brutal offensive performances at times, where you've got offensive coordinators on game day that are calling routes that they may have practiced 1 or 2 times during the week, 1 or 2 reps. That just doesn't make any sense. That goes back to running a condensed call sheet. If I'm running 7 route schemes, route concepts in my passing game, I've got all week to work on those 7 plays. Those 7 is all we're going to work on. We're going to rep those 7 against every coverage look that we're going to see that week in the game. Just those 7. Those are the ones that we're always working on. Think how good your passing game will be at the end of the season if you spend all year long repping the same plays, refining the technique and the execution and getting better, which also increases your confidence level of your players. Just think how much better you're going to be. And you see it on game day and game night when you see offenses that go out there and they look raggedy, right? And that's the result of calling plays in the games that they don't spend time practicing on, right? Or wasting practice time working on stuff that they don't call in the game. That doesn't make any sense to me, but it happens all the time. Okay, let's jump down now to the individual positions within the throwing game. We'll start with the quarterbacks. Okay, the number one skill that your quarterback has to have, and this may surprise people, his number one skill is he has to be a great decision maker. If your quarterback's not a great decision maker, it doesn't matter what else he can do well. Doesn't matter about his arm, doesn't matter about his legs, it just doesn't matter. With that in mind, your practices and your meeting times have to be constructed and built around where to go with the ball when the ball is snapped. Everything you do from Monday through Thursday, if you're playing in high school, or Monday through Friday, if you're playing in college, everything you do on game day or game night is a result of doing the things necessary that week in practice to make your quarterback a great decision maker. Okay, you got to have easy pre and post snap keys and reads for your quarterbacks. Don't complicate it. We talked about going through the pre-snap coverage reads, and we gave our quarterbacks 4 things to look at. Is there 1 high or 2 high safeties? Okay, that tells you a lot right there. What's the depth of the safeties? We want to make sure it's not cover 0 blitz. What are the slot defenders doing, and what are the corners doing? Those 4 things, nice and easy. We followed them in that order. Our quarterbacks had to do that every time they came to the line of scrimmage, along with our receivers. And then when the ball is snapped, the read progressions are easy. You want to give your quarterback 2 or 3 read progressions to check down, 1 to 2 to 3 to check down, or 1 to 2 to check down. You want to not overload him with a bunch of crap in his head. Keep it simple and easy. Okay, so we talked about if it's zone coverage and you're running routes where you have 1 defender in conflict, where you put a receiver outside of him and a receiver inside of him, and you let your quarterback decide which way that defender is going and throw to the guy that's open. Or you put a receiver in front of a defender and a receiver behind him, and now it's a vertical stretch. And if that defender gets depth, you throw it underneath. If he hugs up to the short route, you throw it behind him. Okay, this is an example of putting a defender in conflict in zone coverage. So I've got the defense drawn up in cover 3, and we're running a stick route to that side. This is the guy we're putting in conflict. He's got 2 zones that he's responsible for. He's got curl, which is working back. He's also responsible for the flat, and we're basically going to put a receiver in the flat and a receiver in the curl, and the quarterback's going to key that conflict guy. our quarterback's keying this guy, he's in conflict, and you're telling your quarterback now, and we're GSTing, by the way, grab, stab, and throw. When he gets the snap, he keys this guy. If he flat foots it, we throw the shoot route. If he sinks down on the stick, we throw the shoot route. If he starts to widen with the shoot, we throw the stick route. Right now, who's in between these two guys, he catches the ball and heads straight upfield, and we got a huge play. Either way, whatever he does, he's wrong. Okay, now here's an example of putting a guy in conflict with a vertical stretch. So we got a guy in front of him and a guy behind. So we're running option route here now to the left. So you can take a look at what the routes look like here. We're not going to discuss those routes. We're going to talk about the backside. This is where we've got the conflict going. That's the guy that's in conflict. So if your quarterback snaps his eyes to the backside, he's basically just seeing what this guy's doing. If he gets depth with that second level sit, your quarterback throws this little under route or the read route. If this guy hangs, so he's kind of playing, the underneath routes, the under route or read route or the swing, then you got this guy sitting all by himself in the second level. That's an exact example of putting a guy in conflict with a high-low read for the QB. If it's man-to-man, your quarterback's looking at match-ups. Okay, who is the winner? Okay, this is a big one. You have to match your quarterback's drop to the route concept. You've heard me talk about this on other shows. In order to get rhythm and tempo with your quarterback, you have to have the right steps in his drop that match the type of throws that he's going to be making. So in other words, if you're running intermediate routes, you'll see a lot of quarterbacks go 3 and hitch. 1, 2, 3 hitch stride. Okay. If they're throwing quick game, you'll see him go 3 quick, 1, 2, 3 stride, or you'll see him GST, grab, stab that back foot in the ground and throw the ball. If you watched Joe Montana, who's got the greatest feet of any quarterback that's played up to this point in time, you watch him play for the 49ers and Bill Walsh, he did a ton of 5 and hitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitch throw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitch throw, right? And it looked the same every time, and it matched up to those intermediate throws that they were throwing. Okay, what you don't want to do is if your quarterback's throwing an intermediate type route is take a 3 quick and the routes aren't there yet. He's not ready to throw yet, but he's done with his drop and now he flat foots it. The rhythm and tempo are gone. So you got to match the drop to the route concept. Okay, mechanics have to be drilled into his muscle memory. We're talking about feet, how he drops, how he sets, how he resets his feet. We're talking about weight distribution and balance when he drops. All things that get quarterbacks in trouble. We're talking about keeping your shoulders level. You see quarterbacks that tilt that front shoulder up and drop that back shoulder down as they start to drop. Their weight's going back. When they get to the end of their drop, they can't plant, stride, and throw. They have to plant, rock back up to get their shoulders square and get their weight distribution right, then stride and throw. The ball is coming out late. So the drill work you're doing with your quarterbacks is all based on doing the right stuff every day, continually, so that it's muscle memory. Okay, pocket management. This is a huge skill that your quarterback has to master, and it has to be coached and repped in practice. Pocket management entails what the quarterback does after he takes his drop and isn't able to deliver the football in rhythm and tempo. In other words, something is happening in the pocket, and guys, the pocket changes with every snap. There is never any 2 pockets that are exactly the same. It's an ever-changing and evolving environment for the QB. And the guys that can master the skills of shuffling back away from the line of scrimmage, I call that a controlled shuffle, climbing the pocket, moving up into the line of scrimmage or towards the line of scrimmage, or sliding side to side, a step, 2 steps, just enough to buy time or to get away from a threat or to get into a lane to throw the football and then get the ball off. Coaches that don't work on this are really putting their quarterbacks in a bad situation, because on any given pass play in a game, I would say it's about 40% where he can go through his drop, stride and throw without having to come off platform. The other 60%, he's moving a step, 2 steps, sliding, climbing, then throwing the ball, starting to bail, stop, reset his feet, throw the ball. That happens on more than half of the snaps when you're throwing the ball, so you better work on it in practice. Now, as far as that goes with the quarterbacks and really any position we're talking about with the passing game on the offensive side of the ball, but with QBs, what you want to see as a coach is you want to see your quarterbacks executing the stuff on game day that you work on in practice. It's that muscle memory and it's establishing habits. Those are developed in practice and carried over onto game day or game night for success for the quarterback. Okay, your quarterback has to understand leverage and spacing. We're talking about zone, going against zone now. He needs to know and understand that if you got a defender standing inside of a receiver, just throw it to his outside shoulder. He's got that defender out leveraged. He has to know if his running back's running a shoot route and he's lined up right behind your offensive tackle, and the guy that's responsible for playing him, let's say they're in man-to-man, is the inside linebacker in the box who's lined up over the guard. Your back has already got this guy out leveraged before the ball's snapped. That's a winner. Okay, and then the spacing part of it. You know, we talk about guys in conflict. You got a guy outside of a defender, a guy inside of a defender, and you read that defender as to which receiver you're going to throw to, understanding space and grass on who to deliver the ball to. Understanding leverage. Now, this play actually happened and played out this way in a playoff game 2 years ago with Baltimore and Houston. Baltimore is on offense. Lamar Jackson obviously is playing quarterback. It's like 3rd and 4. This is a big play in the game. And the Ravens run the stick concept. Okay, so you've got the outside release vertical by the outside guy. The running back's running a free release or hot release shoot route. Defensively, Houston's in like a 2-zone shell or a cover 4 shell. Now, this defender stayed inside. When the receiver reverse pivoted and shuffled away, all Lamar has to do is put the ball on his outside shoulder and they've got a completion. He catches the ball and gets tackled. It's a first down. He catches the ball and turns it up and steps out of a tackle, and he's running for a long ways. Lamar held the football. Okay. He considered this guy covered. He held the ball and tried to make something happen with his feet and didn't pick up the first down. But understanding leverage, if you've got a defender playing inside and your receiver's breaking outside versus zone, put it on his outside shoulder. He's open. This one's pretty simple, but a lot of quarterbacks miss this one. Throw to open receivers. Throw completions, which means make the easy throw. Make the easy throw. Now, I talked about Cam Ward all year this year for the Miami Hurricanes, and he's the best quarterback in college football. But in every game, he drove me crazy because he would bypass the easy throw, underneath throw, to try to fit the ball in further downfield. Take the easy throw. Throw completions. Move the sticks. Trust the system and run the offense. Play boring as a quarterback. It goes back to taking the easy throws. Be boring, execute the offense, and watch that scoreboard ding like a slot machine. No predetermined throws. Man, this is a real killer for a quarterback. No predetermined throws, which means your quarterback in his mind is going to go to this guy regardless of what's going on the snap of the ball. That's how you throw a whole bunch of incompletions. And that's another thing that you can do as a quarterback. If you're playing for me, you're going to be the number 2 quarterback in a hurry if that's what you do. Trust the system, make your reads, throw to open receivers, take the easy throws. Okay, and then when you hit the practice field or you hit the game field and you pick up a football, your mechanics start now. You see these quarterbacks go out to practice, they pick up a ball, and their first throw, they're doing some crap where they're fading away and dropping their arm slot and doing something sloppy. Why? Why are we doing that? Your first throw, remember, we're talking about muscle memory, and what you're doing is establishing great habits. Pick the ball up, the first throw of practice, the first throw of warming up in pregame. Get that ball up here on ball carriage, execute your great base and platform, get that ball out the way it's designed to be and the way you're coached to do it. Over and over and over. It's a habit. Okay, practice plans and drill work. As I said earlier, work only drills and group periods and team periods that enhance the individual performance or the offense performance in the scheme that you're running. Don't do bullshit drills. Only the drills that make your quarterback, receiver, running back, and offensive lineman better at what you do within your system. Practice with tempo. Keep it moving, fast-paced. Stick to your time frames. If you've got an hour and a half practice, hour and a half. If you're running an 8-minute drill, at the end of 8 minutes, whether you're good, bad, or in between, move to the next drill. Stay on time, stay in tempo, and it helps your players play with a sense of urgency, and it also makes them crisper. Okay. It also helps their conditioning, their wind, which comes in big if you're going tempo. All right. I'm a huge believer in this. Quarterbacks, receivers, and running back coaches in group periods and team periods, coach your position from the sideline. Coach them from the same distance and viewing point and angles as you would in a game on game day or game night. It doesn't make any sense to me why you got coaches that are standing behind the offense on the practice field, because all that does is it creates a security blanket for the players out there. And when you roll around to game day or game night, the coaches are way over there on the sideline. Okay. Plus, if you're coaching your guys from over there, you increase your ability to communicate and for them to communicate with you from the same distance as you're going to do on game day and game night. Okay, in practice, always have your backup standing next to you. Doesn't matter what you coach, because you're coaching them while you're coaching the guys that are actually doing the drill. And if your players are standing next to you, they're hearing the coaching points that you're giving the guys that are doing the drill. Now with quarterbacks, you got to always have your quarterbacks involved in signaling plays. If you're going no huddle, your quarterbacks have to be signalers. They have to be signalers because it keeps them mentally in tune to what's going on. Plus, again, you're signaling stuff from the sideline, right? 7-on-7, team period, blitz pickup maybe, screen period. They're standing right next to you. They're doing dummy signals, or if they're hot, they're hot. But you're able to coach them up while you're coaching the guy up that's on the field executing the real reps. So have your backup standing next to you in practice. Get your number 2 quarterback a ton of reps. A lot of coaches don't do this, and it ends up hurting them big time. I usually went about 65% for the starter and 35% for the backup, maybe 60-40. But that number 2 quarterback has to get significant reps in practice. Why? Because your starting quarterback can get hurt on the first play of the game. He can get hurt jogging out to the huddle. Regardless of when he gets hurt or how he gets hurt, here's the thing. Have your number 2 guy ready to go. Okay, other methods now that we need to talk about that have worked for me. Okay, with the routes now, and this is another one that is, it should be obvious, but coaches won't do this. Keep running routes until the defense stops it. If you run a 6-yard hitch route and they're playing cover 3 and the corner's lined up 8 yards off and he's backpedaling on the snap of the ball and you're able to just GST it and chuck it out there, run it again and then run it the next play and then run it the next play until they start tightening that corner up or they change coverage. Keep running plays repeatedly until the defense stops it. This is a big one now. Have a way to communicate with your quarterback on the field with hand signals to tell him who you want him to throw the ball to. If it's a coverage you've got to play on and it's a coverage that tells him he's going here to here, but you see something from the sideline and you want him to take advantage of a guy that is going to be a winner, to just have the ability to call his name out and give a little signal. Now, I'm not going to give the signals because there's still coaches up in Northern California that are still running some of my stuff. But if we were running 4 vertical and they were playing cover 2, and my quarterback usually had, well, always had versus cover 2, bender to check down. And they took a safety and started walking him too far towards the middle of the field, where basically it was one-on-one with the outside receiver in the corner, and our outside receiver could run. I just called the quarterback's name out. He looked at the sideline. I give him a real quick hand signal to tell him, I want you to throw to number 4. Okay, being able to signal to your quarterback to tell him who to throw to. It's like you've got the joystick as the offensive coordinator on the sideline. You're playing the video game, and defensively they're giving you something. Take it. All right, so you keep the play on that you got called, but instead of your quarterback now going through his normal read progression when the ball snapped based on coverage, you tell him who you want him to throw the ball to because you've got a winner. This is an example of something that happened a lot when I coached. We would call this play 4 vertical, right? And versus cover 2, one of our slot receivers was running the bender. So we'll say we tagged the number 3 receiver here. I numbered my receivers. 1 and 2 are to the left. Number 5 is the back. Number 3 was running the bender here. Number 4 had best release vertical. All right. We had 2 verticals on the backside. Now my quarterback in his normal reads versus this on the snap of the ball, he's going bender to check down, bender to check down. But when we lined up and they lined up in their coverage, the safety to this side, to the right side, played too far towards the middle of the field. He played inside the hash, and we had a dude out here that could absolutely freaking fly. So I'm on the sideline. I just call my quarterback's name out. He just looks over at me. I flip a real fast little signal telling him, I want you throwing to number 4. So having those real quick, easy ways to communicate to your quarterback. Again, this stuff has to be practiced all week in practice. And this is why you coach your quarterback in practice from the sideline. And so the ability to do that, I equate it to having the joystick in a video game and you control it as a coach. If you can quickly communicate with a real easy hand signal to tell him who to throw to in order to hurt the defense, do it, because it's going to add a bunch of points and yards to your offense and your passing game. Okay, now, so to tie a bow on this thing with the passing game, it's a 5-pronged process for a great pass offense. And that is, number 1, scheme. Number 2, execution of scheme. And the execution is with your players and your coaches. And number 3, implementation of practice periods and drills, right? We talked about that. Number 4, technique and mechanics. Technique wins. It's the cherry on top. All right. So you've got your scheme and you've got your technique in executing the scheme. And then number 5, it's the meeting room. It's the mental learning, the mental part of the passing game. It's film. And it's whiteboard sessions. It's you as a coach making sure that everybody's dialed in that room. And then with film now, be honest in what you're looking at. If you're grading or evaluating game film or practice film, be honest with your players. Remember, you as a coach in your passing game, you set the expectation up here. Your players then are coached to meet that expectation. And if they do, and you do everything else that we talked about, you're going to go up and down the field and make that scoreboard ding and spin like a slot machine. Okay, so that's my opinion and how I did things with the passing game. And like I said, there's been other coaches that have been successful throwing the football, doing it a little bit different. At the end of the day, it's whatever gets the job done. Okay, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that, guys. Let me know in the comments, if you've got any other theories when it comes to the passing game. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.